Alors, bonjour et bienvenue à cette conférence de presse urgente sur les atrocités de masse et génocide, un génocide prévu mais ignoré au Sudan. I'd like to welcome you to this urgent press conference regarding a genocide foretold yet ignored amidst indifference, inaction, and impunity. I say that because as a member of parliament in 2003, I established then the first ever Save Darfur all-party parliamentary coalition with regard to the genocide then in Darfur. And we made subsequently a determination to that effect. It's tragic and painful that some 22 years later, we have to come again because of a second and even more horrific genocide, continuing as we meet today. Again, a genocide foretold, forewarned, ignored, and the complicity of silence. And so we have come here today to basically do three things. Number one, to share some principal findings regarding the horrific mass atrocities, particularly, and we put it out in a report, A War on Children, A World Complicit, co-authored by our two special guests and experts here with us today, Mutasim Ali, himself a survivor of the first genocide, and now a special advisor with our Raoul Wallenberg, and Yonah Diamond, also a special advisor and international human rights expert. Both of them have also co-authored a landmark report on the genocide in Sudan in April 2024. It's 18 months later. The one on children is the most recent one. And so it's not as if the compelling horrors were not known. It's that they were not acted upon. And today I'm delighted to announce as well that we are establishing a Sudan all-party parliamentary coalition, as I said, the second of its kind. And before I turn it over to our two experts, I will ask our parliamentarians here to say a few words. I do want to say that there were some parliamentarians who would have been with us but have competing parliamentary commitments. I will just mention who they are. Ahmed Hussein was chair of the Foreign Affairs Committee on the Liberal side. On the Conservative side, it's Michael Chong, the Foreign Affairs critic for the Conservatives. It's Shuv Majumbar, also of the Conservative Party. And lastly, Alexis Brunel Duceppe, the Parti Bloc Québécois, who very much wanted to be with us, but again is part of the same committee that is meeting right now, the Foreign Affairs Committee. So I'll now turn it over to the parliamentarians. They'll each speak 1 to 2 minutes. We know the imperatives of time. And we'll start with the chair of the Foreign Affairs Subcommittee on Human Rights, who yesterday convened hearings on this matter, El-Khoury, who will begin our discussions.
Thank you, Mr. Cotler. It's great to work in this particular human issue, especially with a great man who is a pioneer in defending a human right. As a chair for Subcommittee for Human Rights, I have a pain seeing genocide committed in 2025. Any human being on this planet, no matter where he come from, no matter his religion or the color of the skin, he should live in peace and security. And those criminals who committed genocide or any movement against the human right should be brought to justice. So our duty here to continue working until we see peace prevail and every human being enjoy a secure life with dignity. Thank you.
Merci, Fayçal. Greg Fergus? Oh. Former Speaker of the House.
Merci beaucoup, Dr. Cotler. Professeur Cotler, c'est vraiment un plaisir. C'est pas un plaisir d'être ici, mais c'est un honneur de travailler encore une fois avec tous les députés de toutes les formations politiques dans la Chambre des communes pour lever notre voix, pour s'assurer qu'on va parler haut et fort contre le deuxième génocide qui se trouve au Soudan. Comme le professeur Cotler vient de dire, c'est inacceptable d'avoir ça une fois, mais d'avoir deux fois, c'est terrible. C'est vraiment quelque chose. Je suis content que le gouvernement contribue 66 millions de dollars parmi les palmarès des pays qui contribuent pour combattre la situation qui existe, cette injustice qui existe. Cependant, il y a beaucoup de travail à faire, puis on va faire ça en collaboration avec toutes les formations politiques. Nous ne sommes pas des représentants des partis, nous sommes des députés, des parlementaires qui sont préoccupés par cette travestie des droits humains. Merci.
Now we'll have Elizabeth May, my old parliamentary colleague and comrade in arms from the Green Party.
Thank you. Merci, Professeur Cotler. C'est un grand honneur toujours de prendre la parole, de partager le travail avec une de mes héros, Irwin Cotler, et aussi avec mes collègues dans les autres formations politiques. Comme chef de Parti vert, c'est clair que pour nous, c'est une honte pour nous que nous avons maintenant un autre génocide, invisible, presque invisible dans notre journaux, les quotidiens. We are in a genocide again in Sudan, and we are not even able to focus on it because the war continues in Ukraine, because Gaza and the tenuous ceasefire there continues to see children killed. But here we must focus. And no matter how much we are distracted, we must focus. We must ask the Canadian Minister of Immigration that the pathways that were supposed to be there for the families of Sudanese with Canadian connections, that they get to Canada before they die waiting, as they have been doing. We must track the evidence that there are connections between Canada and arms being used in this genocide on the ground in Sudan. I will keep my remarks very brief, just to say, when we say jamais encore, never again a genocide, how can we keep saying never again when it continues to occur? The world itself, the family, the human family, must act like a family and be committed to ending these conflicts of cruelty. This insanity must end. Merci.
Merci, Liv. We'll now turn it over to our two guests, but I think you appreciate from the parliamentarians thus far that what we've been witnessing with the genocide foretold all these years have been crimes of indifference, conspiracies of silence.
Good morning. Let me begin by acknowledging the incredible work of honorable members and the Canadian government in their response to the atrocities in Sudan. Since the very first days of the conflict in Sudan, the Raoul Wallenberg Centre for Human Rights has been sounding the alarm. We brought together over 100 leading international experts and investigated the unfolding atrocities. What we uncovered was unmistakable and devastating. Genocide has been committed. In our recent report, War on Children, we documented how all warring parties, each to varying degrees, have carried out war crimes and crimes against humanity targeting children. We also exposed external actors, states and non-state actors, who are enabling, fueling, and prolonging these horrors. These crimes were not hidden. They were not secret. They were committed in plain sight on the world's watch. In June 2023, in the months leading up to the genocide in Al-Janeina, West Darfur, the warning signs were unambiguous. We knew long before the first massacres that the Masalit community faced the imminent threat of extermination. In April 2025, Zamzam camp for internally displaced persons camp was attacked. Last October, Al-Fayçal was captured by the Rapid Support Forces. The perpetrators documented their own crimes. One fighter boasted, "I killed 2,000 today. I will begin from zero tomorrow." And heartbreakingly, these crimes are not being committed by the were committed by the same perpetrators who terrorized the same communities 20 years ago. The pattern is tragically familiar. They began by targeting ethnic groups one after another. They used racial slurs, dehumanizing them, calling them slaves, and branding them as enemies. This was not random hate. It was a deliberate strategy to prepare fighters psychologically for the violence that followed. If you believe the worst has already happened, I must tell you, the worst may still be ahead. We are not speaking today about a tragedy that has passed. We're speaking from the midst of the continuing campaign of mass violence. We are not, and so we stand here today not simply to recount suffering, but to urge action, urgent, collective, decisive action. Because this crisis, unlike so many others, where the world claimed ignorance too late, is not over. It is not inevitable. It is still preventable. The world has a chance, perhaps it's lost, to stop genocide in real time. We must not fail the people of Sudan again. Thank you.
Thank you, Mutasim, for your compelling remarks. Now, Yonah.
For 2.5 years, we've watched as Sudan has been destroyed by genocide and a war of atrocities against children. In the last month, we've witnessed the most unprecedented massacres to date in El-Khoury against Darfuri people for who they are. There is no more time for vague condemnations or moral platitudes. And so in the spirit of our shared humanity today, we call on all parliamentarians to join our coalition for Sudan and to take initiative on any of the following action items. One, most notably, formally recognize the genocide, a long overdue step towards justice, which is supported by numerous, countless, overwhelming, conclusive, independent legal findings. Increase emergency immigration measures, as was mentioned, including expediting all pending applications and reuniting and ending the discriminatory treatment of Canadian Sudanese families. Expand the use of targeted sanctions against key perpetrators and their enabling entities. On the diplomatic front, push for a civilian protection mechanism to protect the children and the most vulnerable who are most at risk right now, and under the rapid support forces, for instance, in North Darfur, where there are telecommunications blackouts, and so we don't know the fate of tens of thousands. Take legal action at the International Court of Justice against implicated states. And finally, scale up humanitarian aid, as Canada has been doing, we want to acknowledge. Thank you.
Thank you, Yonah, for the identifiable action plan going forward. Just two comments. Mutasim mentioned about the 100 scholars, experts brought together who then determined that there was a genocide. I happen to have been one of them, but we produced that report in November 2023. It is now November 2025. Therefore, in a word, a generation foretold, genocide foretold, but not acted upon. The second thing, our two experts put out this report, A War on Children, A World Complicit. Publication date, October 25. Today, as we meet, the end of November 2025, we've had since then, as mentioned by you, the worst assault on children yet in this horrific genocide. So you can see why time is of the essence. We'll now open to questions. I just want to say we have here notre directrice de communication, Simone Anchette, qui va nous aider dans la question s'il y a une nécessité pour traduction pour notre deux experts. Merci. We'll now take any questions. Yes.
Oh, is that me?
Yeah.
Oh, sure. Yeah, Mary Wolf from the Globe and Mail. Elizabeth, you touched on the whole question of immigration and Sudanese Canadians who've applied for their families to join them apparently recently had a meeting with the IRCC and they told them that the new levels plan would mean that they could wait years for them to come here. And do you feel, I mean, will the group be liaising with IRCC about clearly time is of the essence? Well, what action do you think the government should take to get people here who are actually in El-Khoury and even in Darfur around that region?
And of the two authors that you heard too, Yonah Diamond made the same point, and I've met with Sudanese Canadian community members who could tell me in detail the individuals they know who were murdered while on the expedited list and approved for entry into Canada, who weren't able to get here before being killed, people who've died while waiting. So to the Minister of Immigration, to the Honourable Lina Diab, I can't speak for a new all-party group that's just been formed, but given the recommendations that are in this report and given what we're experiencing, I certainly, as leader of the Green Party, will be asking the Honourable Lina Diab to expedite that Sudanese family members get here now, because as you've heard, every single day matters. The genocide continues. It's targeting children, it's targeting women. Gender-based violence in this conflict is documented. It's a genocide, and it's happening right now. We can't afford to sit on our hands and tie ourselves up in IRCC red tape.
Just want to add on that yesterday the testimony before the Foreign Affairs Subcommittee that Fayçal chaired, there were representatives from the Canadian Sudanese community. They not only made that point, but came over to me afterwards and said, if we have one request for you, one request for tomorrow, the urgency of fast-tracking that immigration. And I've asked for a meeting with the Minister of Citizenship for that purpose.
Just as a follow-up, there's some evidence that Canadian arms are reaching the militia via UAE. And I wondered if your committee will be looking at that or raising that with the government. And what do you think should be done?
I just asked in question period yesterday, what the hell are we doing if we want to expand trade routes? I get it. We need trade with partners, but we should be trading with countries, democracies that respect shared values like respecting human rights. So the UAE right now is not a place I'm happy to see my Prime Minister visiting, and hopes for greater trade ties when we know that UAE manufactured personnel carriers are being used in Sudan as part of the genocide. And I saw the CBC News report again on Sterling, which is a company in British Columbia whose rifles are getting into the hands of killers in this horrific conflict. So speaking for myself and the Green Party, you bet we're going to go after the questions about the UAE.
I just want to comment on this. We know that there is a robust legal regime in place, including the Special Economic Measures Act, the Arms Treaty, Trade Treaty, and other legal regimes. And I think we hope that this will be scrutinized further and see who are the actors really fueling the conflict. We believe that the reason why the horrors in Sudan continue is because of the external actors involved. And we believe that the Canadian government can play a critical role in cutting off all the external actors fueling the atrocities in the country.
Mr. Cotler, actually, a few questions. And what Simon talked from the National Post. Just wondering what it is that, how far along is the international community in terms of working together as one voice to try to resolve this situation?
Well, you know, the international community itself needs a wake-up call, and we need, you know, a coalition here of the community of democracies and others. There's the Quad Group and the like. This has to be a priority on the international agenda, on the domestic agenda, as a matter of principle, policy, and the utmost urgency. I cannot stress this enough, that every day, children are dying, women are being raped, the most vulnerable of the vulnerable are being assaulted and murdered. And so we have to shatter the conspiracies of silence, break down the walls of indifference, and act. That has to be the imperative that must guide us domestically and internationally.
And is the African Union involved and clear on their position?
Well, we've made representations, but I'll ask Mutasim on the African Union.
The African Union has been working on initiating political process that will bring all the Sudanese civilians together to restore the democratic transition. But I think the African Union can play a bigger role in terms of ending the hostilities first and then lay a foundation for a political process later on.
Are they not better positioned to take the lead on this?
Absolutely, this should be the case. And as they always say, that African problems, African solution. I think definitely they can demonstrate a bigger role in resolving the conflict. I think so far their role is not up to the magnitude of the atrocities in Sudan, but I think Canada, together with the African Union and other allies, can definitely support the ending of hostilities in the country and initiating political process.
And is the United States engaged?
Yes, the United States engaged as part of the Quad. We've seen there are numerous initiatives for ceasefire. That has not come to bear fruit at this point. But I think, yes, the U.S. is now leading the efforts in terms of ending the hostilities and making sure that the warring parties coming to the negotiating table.
And I realize this is a tough number or thing to quantify, but how many people would you say are at risk here?
We can't really tell the numbers at the moment. We know for sure that at least the population of Al-Fashir, we know for sure that there were about 200,000 people who were left in Al-Fashir. We do not have additional information as to how their living condition is, and the reports from organizations working in the Darfur region do not really send a positive picture. And so this is a massive population at risk, but also there's other populations in other areas in addition to Al-Fashir. They're facing daily atrocities, they're facing hunger. We know that famine has already been confirmed about a year and a half ago, The entire population of Darfur is really at risk, and that's part of the reason why we call for a protection mechanism to ensure the civilians are protected.
Thank you. That's all the time we had.
Just want to thank you all and say one thing, never again is now. Thank you.
Thank you. This concludes the press conference. Merci. C'est ce qui conclut cette conférence de presse.
Great job, Mr. Thanks a lot. May God give you more life.
And we're going to be in touch on the
Recording stopped.